When Emily Roberts, a 29-year-old graphic designer, moved into her own apartment in New York, she was certain that her big girl pants were on straight. After all, she could finally decorate the walls with stick-on posters, eat instant noodles from the carton without her roommate judging her, and wear slippers while working from home. But Emily quickly realized that living alone is not only about freedom, it's also about responsibility. The first month of independence is usually a nightmare for beginner adults. There are bills to pay, food to be bought, mail to pick up from the post office. But Emily had been working hard for 2 years after graduating from Kingston University in London, and her salary at an ad agency was enough to cover rent and other expenses, and still leave her with a surplus of around $1,000 a month. So even though her savings account had a balance of over $10,000, the 27 First Primaveras didn't stop Emily from enjoying all the benefits of her status as a young professional. She took Uber everywhere. She went to dinner with friends whenever she could, and treated herself to a takeout coffee every day. Even though her roommate accused her of being addicted to the Buy Now button on her credit card, the truth is, Emily couldn't resist the excitement of receiving a package. But everything changed on a summer Friday in Seattle, when she decided to treat herself to a leather jacket, worth almost the same price as a plane ticket to Lisbon. The feeling of victory was immediate. Her heart raced, her dopamine fired. But that euphoria lasted less time than it took for the Buy Now button to confirm the purchase. Because as soon as the confirmation arrived, a tiny dot of guilt settled in the corner of Emily's mind. It grew, turned into concern, anxiety, then became panic. She realized that something was wrong when a few weeks later she found herself browsing for limited edition sneakers, an industrial coffee maker, and a Scandinavian design armchair that she barely fit in her studio. She justified her impulse purchases as acts of self-care, insisting that she deserved them after working long hours. But the credit card quickly became a Gordian knot. Each purchase generated fees, interest, and that constant fear of opening her bank statement. Her relationship with work changed. Before, she liked creating layouts and playing with color, but after so many purchases, she suddenly found herself producing less and suffering from insomnia. At 3 a.m., the thought was always, what if I no longer have money to pay the bills? And each bank notification was a punch to the stomach. Friends began to notice that whenever she received an order, she was missing days to organize her space, but was actually obsessively checking the balance, renegotiating deadlines, and asking for extra installments. Emily was addicted to the rush of getting what she wanted, the unboxing videos and the satisfaction of a job well done. That's why she subscribed to therapy with Dr. Anthony Caldwell, a psychologist specializing in consumer disorders. He explained that the buying spree was a way of trying to fill a void, a mixture of boredom and insecurity. Emily acknowledged that since her teens, she has always sought out praise or gadgets and the approval of others and immediate relief. The consequence was an aggravation of her relationship. Her boyfriend, whose name was Noah Sinclair, literally slept with his cell phone so he would be able to block more shopping if Emily passed the limit. But she created accounts on foreign sites with imaginary domains to continue buying. At work, customers began to complain about the missed deadlines, delays in project deliveries, and Emily had to resign from her dream job at a Manhattan advertising agency because she could no longer reconcile meetings with financial anguish. Late accounts generated telephone and internet protests, and she lost her basic services. Alcohol became a constant company on nights when she felt alone, reviewing old invoices and trying to understand how she had let things get to the point of disagreeing with her parents about how to use the card limit. The family learned when his father, Scottish engineer Malcolm Roberts, was charged from a debt that he didn't even know existed, the result of a guarantee that Emily had given without warning. The injured pride and the feeling of guilt paralyzed Emily for months until one gray morning without electricity at home for non-payment. She entered the therapist's website and scheduled an emergency session. From then on, the reconstruction began. Spending control, recordation of each penny, breathing exercises to deal with the urgency of I want it now, sessions to talk about traumas and relaxations. The process was painful with relapses, nights of crying, and moments of doubt about her own identity without the shopping trigger. But after 6 months, she was able to reduce online requests by 80%, settled part of her debts with a loan that she made to herself, asking for help from her family, and discovered new pleasures, reading a book in the square, walking without destination. Redesign her portfolio calmly. Today, she still feels that call when she sees a promotion but can answer with a "wait a second" before clicking. The damage to Emily's life was immense. Shaken family relationships, interrupted career, fragile mental health, shaken confidence. If you have already seen yourself stuck in this cycle of euphoria and guilt, we want to know, how do you deal with the irresistible desire to buy something you don't even need? What helps you recognize and overcome this impulse? Share your story here in the comments. We really want to know if you feel identified with this case. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe here on Amazing and Useful, so you don't miss more real stories that help us understand behaviors and learn about turning our routines upside down with practical tips that go beyond cut your spending.
This is Amazing and Useful. Report 2. Michael Thompson, financial analyst. The worst thing about working in a big city is seeing your salary arrive every month exactly in the same amount, commented Michael to himself one Tuesday, looking at the bank balance. He knew there was a lot of money circulating around him, but it seemed that none of it was his. Until one day everything changed. His boss praised him in front of colleagues for his quarterly presentation. And since no one expected it, Michael decided to celebrate. He found a promotion on his favorite website, and with a single click, the sleek new smartwatch was already his. He immediately set up the device and crossed off the goals he wanted to accomplish with it. Monitor sleep, calculate calorie expenditure, and of course, increase productivity. But after 2 days, Michael noticed that the promise of increased performance had not materialized. Instead, he was just spending a lot of time checking notifications. For a week, the watch stayed on his wrist. Then Michael started looking for other promotions. In less than a month, he had received more than 20 packages, including a 12-speed bicycle, a tablet to read electronic books, a coffee maker with a built-in grinder, a smart scale, and a portable speaker. That day, Michael opened another box, this time a drone with a 4K camera. Looking at his cluttered apartment, he realized that he wasn't just a victim of advertising. He was actively feeding his own unbridled consumerism. One evening, Michael sat down in an armchair, trying to figure out what had happened. He thought about his colleague Peter, who never got married because he was afraid of commitment and went on a date only once a month. Michael concluded that Peter was scared of being alone with himself and unconsciously sought refuge in fleeting relationships. But what about him? What was hiding behind Michael's compulsive buying? A lonely childhood, a difficult relationship with his parents, or a recent divorce? He didn't have any of that. So why did he impulsively buy a drone he didn't need instead of, say, calling a friend? The answer came suddenly. Michael realized that his real problem was boredom. But how could he admit that his life was boring when he had everything he needed, and even some things he did not? Guilt and shame swept through him. Michael understood that he wasn't the only one suffering from this strange disease. According to data published by the American Psychological Association, Americans spend $2.6 trillion a year on things they don't really need. 3 to 4 of consumers admit to making unnecessary purchases at least once a week. But if too many people are struggling with this, where does the extra money come from? Psychologists believe that we are subconsciously trading our future happiness for today's satisfaction. Buying things makes us happy for a few minutes while the package is being opened. But this joy quickly evaporates, and we are left with nothing but regret and a pile of trash. How can we get rid of this vicious circle? Experts recommend getting rid of instant gratifications and replacing them with long-term ones. Learn to be bored, go for a walk, spend time with family and friends, engage in activities you enjoy, develop new hobbies. And most importantly, listen to yourself and make conscious decisions based on your needs and values. If your home is already full of things you don't use, there's no point in ordering another one. If you're tired of being alone, it's best to call a friend rather than look for solace in a new relationship. It may seem difficult, but changing your consumer behavior is possible. And here are some tips to help you start. If you've already experienced the thrill of buying something just to feel better, please tell us in the comments what was the most absurd purchase you ever made in the heat of the moment. And if you're not a subscriber yet, be sure to hit the subscribe button. And now see you later.
This is a story that could have happened to any of us. A story about escaping into purchases, clicking, scrolling, buying. But no, it's a story that happened to a friend of mine, a digital marketing manager. I don't want to mention her name here, but it's not important anyway, because she prefers to keep this part of her life hidden. She's afraid of what people might think of her or judge her for what she did. But I believe that through this story, she found a way to heal herself and wanted to share it with you. So, let's go back to the beginning of the story, shall we? It all started on a normal day, at least in terms of normal days. My friend was celebrating. She felt that she had expanded her horizon. On a spring morning, Texan, she decided to celebrate a successful campaign. 37 luxury office accessories units sold out. Golden planed blocks organizers in matte acrylic items that turned your table clean into a jumble of objects that she barely knew where to fit. That sensation of triumph lasted only a few seconds because soon came deep regret. That sickening feeling in the pit of her stomach that only got worse with each new shipping notification she received. But she couldn't stop. Soon, her apartment resembled an unboxing frenzy. There were 7 protective covers for intelligent silicone notebooks, 2 intensity ruler luminaires, and 20 magnetic page markers. All purchased in one fell swoop while she tried filling a void that was born of anxiety for not being recognized for anything else other than the results of clicks and likes. Within a few weeks, her credit card reached boundaries that seemed unattainable, firing interest rates that made their eyes almost jump out of their sockets with each bank extract received by email. But the most alarming thing was when she realized that she had opened parallel accounts on international websites using old addresses from previous jobs to circumvent buying limits, creating a forgotten password maze and confirmations that never arrived. At work, her productivity plummeted, late reports scheduled and then cancelled meetings because my friend needed half an hour to redo spreadsheets and figure out how to justify another high invoice, which resulted in subtle comments from her colleagues. "Are you okay? Do you need some time?" While in parallel conversations on instant messaging, she asked strangers in specialized forums which was the best strategy for eliminating compulsion. At home, the psychological effect was devastating. Each package that arrived was followed by a mixture of euphoria and self-pity, and she began to suffer from insomnia. Waking up at 3 and 2 minutes in the morning, according to the digital clock, to check the balance and renegotiate installments, drink strong coffee, and wait for the confirmation of deadlines like a contestant in a survival championship. Her physical health also suffered. Constant headaches, tension in her neck, unexpected cramps in her hands from typing card numbers and security codes. The breaking point came when her apartment colleague, Swedish writer Ingrid Larsson, found boxes piled up in the room full of products that my friend didn't even remember buying, and demanded explanations, saying that those items took the place of moments of coexistence and rest. The humiliation was so great that she locked herself in her room and only left for the online therapy session with psychologist Dr. Benjamin Carter, a specialist in impulse control disorders, who challenged her to list each item she had acquired in the last 30 days and to associate the purchase with a specific emotion. It was in this exercise that she realized that each click represented an escape from relentless internal criticism, a momentary relief from a dialogue that made her feel incapable of meeting her own expectations. From there, she committed to strict rules. Just one superfluous purchase every fortnight, prior price research for at least 24 hours, and mandatory registration of emotions before and after, and replaced the act of buying with the sunrise of the sun at Ladybird Lake, finding that the color and light registration was as gratifying as any new gadget. The improvements came slowly, but they came. In 2 months, she paid 40% of her debt, reconnected with Ingrid for weekly home cinema sessions, rescued the pleasure of creating without buying, developing marketing campaigns based on experiences and not material goods. The damage was done. Self-esteem scratched, friendships tensioned, nights with insomnia, but also taught her what a real value is not found in boxes at the door, but in shared glances and stories. And you? Have you ever used an impulsive purchase to escape a difficult feeling? Subscribe to the channel Amazing and Useful to discover touching stories and learn to turn impulses into conscious choices. Leave a comment telling what was the most unexpected object you have already bought in the heat of the moment and how it impacted your daily life. Like the video if this story made you hit the brakes in the next lightning offer, and share it with someone who spends their life looking for comfort in promotions so that together we can build a community of support and reflection.